Hey everyone, Charlie here. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to a new episode, well, depending on when you're watching this, I guess, of One Cuppa Japan. If this is your first time seeing One Cuppa Japan, basically it's just me walking around my little corner of Japan or wherever I may find myself with a cup of something. Today it is green dakara, or just dakara as people tend to call it around here, and I'm just talking about stuff. So you probably can't tell because there's no like temperature sensor on YouTube, but it is really freaking hot today. But it's a really gorgeous day. It's really green. It's like not everybody. It's like the world turned up its saturation levels to max, right? It's just these are all rice fields, and especially recently, as you can see, the rice is actually starting to form anyway. The grain. That's what the green bits are on there at the top. Those tiny little green bulbs, right? The grains. And well, not for a little while yet, but soon enough, the stalks actually will become so heavy with the grain that they'll start to sort of bend over, and that's when you will see, of course, the farmers out here coming out to harvest it. Sometimes by hand, which is just clearly it's really like back-breaking work, and then other times, if they can afford it, they'll have the machines that they'll ride on to harvest it. I say back-breaking, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but especially out here in like the Tambo and the Inaka, you'll find like you'll see a lot of older farmers who are sort of permanently bent over from spending so much time in the fields, bent over, pushing the new rice down into the mud day after day, right? It's quite literally back-breaking work. So, but it's so essential. What's actually really sad though is that, see around here, like, so far we've passed what? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There are six rice fields here, right? Six paddies. But when I first moved here, you can see over there where that house is being built, where this new sort of brick-colored apartment is right in front of us here. That was all rice fields, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of sad to see that sort of in a lot of places, from what I understand, the Tambo are just, is this thing on? Yes, it is, okay. Yeah, the rice fields are kind of disappearing in favor of mansions and, mansions, so to speak, like apartment buildings. Apartment buildings and, well, also care homes for the elderly, because, well, the aging problem that, if you're familiar with Japan at all, I'm sure you've probably already heard of ad nauseum. But the thing that's interesting about that, right, is that the population is not improving, right? And yet they keep building new mansions, so it's really strange to me. Like, I think Sabai's population has grown significantly. It seems like we're actually in the midst of particularly economically, like a mini boom here. So there are a lot of people moving here. So maybe that's why, but it just seems like, I don't know, it seems kind of short-sighted to build all these areas for cheap housing when the outlook isn't such that long-term the country will be able to afford that kind of thing. But I guess on the same time, it's not like there's going to be more people who need to eat rice, right? So I love all the gardens. God damn it, it's hot though. I think today it's 33 degrees Celsius. It's gotten to the point where I don't even know what that is in Fahrenheit anymore. There's another garden over here with some really healthy looking tomatoes on the vines. I've been really thinking actually recently that I'm going to rent an allotment next year. A couple of my friends were talking about how they've always wanted a garden, but just never gotten around to it. So we've been talking that next year which will be my last year here, we'll get an allotment and grow some vegetables. A lot of work that though, yeah? A lot of work. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But, konnichiwa. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. So last night, I had a really embarrassing day yesterday. And I thought maybe this would be a topic for a video unto itself, but I don't really think so. So I've made a video before basically saying that, what did I say? You don't really need to learn Japanese to come to Japan to be an English teacher, right? Which is true. There are plenty of people, most of the foreign friends I have here, for example, don't speak hardly any Japanese. They know enough to ask where some things are or to order their food at dinner. But other than that, that's the extent of their ability, right? Which is fine. But so what I mean to say is that, of course, you can survive here, right? Like you can be a good teacher. You can be happy in your own sort of community if you're able to make friends with other foreigners. But yesterday really highlighted for me why I think you really need to put in that extra effort. And I understand it's effort and it's time that you may not feel you have or whatever, but my experience, it's all just sort of an excuse. But so yesterday, well, the story begins Saturday night, 2 nights ago, anyway, the day before yesterday. And I was at my local izakaya, where I often find myself on the weekends with another teacher for like a small nomikai, like a summer nomikai type thing. And one of my regular drinking buddies came there and he's like, well, why don't you come hang out tomorrow? And we'll just drink and we'll talk. It'll just be a good, like nice Sunday afternoon thing, right? So now what I thought he had said and what he actually said were two different things, right? I thought he said, come to my house at 4 o'clock and we'll just sort of hang out and drink. But I only got it sort of half right? So I went to his house at that time, had a really embarrassing conversation with his son-in-law. I love this old building. Oh, Shota. ちょっと待って。こんにちは。そうですね。溝落に住んでます。3丁目。はい。はい、そうですね。はい。おう。うち違うんです。また下なんです。ここ実家なんです。おばあちゃん家なんです。あ、そうなんですか。じゃあまた明日ね。はい。バイバイ。Wow, just ran into a couple, my student and his mom. That was cool. And so yeah, I really love this old house. Not this old house, this old building. It's used to be a sake distillery. I think I've shown it before. But now they just sort of sell bottled sake to local businesses around here. I know I feel bad. I was kind of short with them because I was on camera. I should have stopped the camera, but now I feel bad. I'm gonna feel guilty all day. But anyway, so over here, it doesn't look like anything remarkable now, but just the other night was another festival. Saturday night there was a festival here. But anyway, I should continue my tale, shouldn't I? So I show up at the house at 4 o'clock, and I have this really uncomfortable conversation with the son-in-law, yeah, and like, where's so and so? Like, is he here? And then of course so and so appears out from his house, and he's like, oh, you're here really early. No, he's like, well, we're not doing anything yet, and I'm like, oh shit, I guess I misunderstood. Right? Come to find out later, I had gotten the time correct, but it turned out to be kind of a moot point. So Anyway, I go home embarrassed, tail between my legs, and sort of, so you know, shrug it off like, okay, well, just a small misunderstanding, no problem. And then I so I go back there 2 hours later. He tells me, oh, you know, it starts at 6, come back at 6. So I go back to his house at 6 o'clock, right? And I'm ready to go. I'm ready to have a couple beers and hang out. It'll be fun. And so I get to the house, and this time he's just not there. And his wife, who I know and I've met before, you know, I ring the bell. She comes outside and she's like, oh, you know, like, Hisashiburi, like, haven't seen you in a while. Kind of thing, you know? And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like, so, I'm sorry, I hope I'm here at the right time. And she's like, oh, but you're not supposed to come here. You're supposed to go down to the festival, just down the slope, right? Like the local, whatchamacallit. Anyway, there's like a local park where the concert is going on. So, come to find out, gotten the time wrong, well, gotten it right, and had also completely misunderstood what we were going to be doing. So we ended up going to a festival together, right? Which was great. I'm glad it worked out to be that way. We hung out, I hung out with this guy and his family, and the master of my local izakaya, which I'll show you here in a second. And yeah, we watched like the bon dancing, which is basically like, Obon is like a summer festival here. It's really important. And I'm trying to think what to liken it to. It has some similarities to like Day of the Dead in Mexico, right? Where like supposedly, traditionally, where I'm understanding it, it's sort of like the veil between like the spirit world and our plane of existence. I'm doing a terrible job explaining this. Is sort of weakened. So like the ancestors come back for that day, and which is why like a lot of people go home for Obon. They return home to be with their families and stuff like that. And so yeah, so they have these festivals, and at these festivals they do bone dancing. Bone dancing. Makes me think of the dancing skeletons from Disney's Halloween Treat, but anyway. I'm an idiot. So they do this dancing, they're wearing special yukata and these special sort of like, they look like folded rice hats, or like folded, like those straw trays that you often see soba served on, they look like those sort of folded in half. And yeah, so they did the dancing. It was really nice, and it's really cute to see all like the kids get up there and try and follow the steps. I tried to follow the steps on my friend's insistence, with him and another guy we were with, and I ended up falling over, embarrassingly. But yeah, so the point of all this, which I've completely lost track of, go figure, this is the parking lot, we're getting close to the little izakaya that I was telling you about, so that we kind of had like a very in-depth conversation where it was like, I'll continue once I show you. So this is my local izakaya called Mamete, and as you can see, it's tiny, right? Now inside there, if ever you're in Sabai, best place there is, without a doubt. But inside there's just like one L-shaped counter. It fits maybe 10 people. And then there's a side room that fits maybe, if you squeeze in, like 6 people. It's tiny, so it's a really, really intimate. Good place to drink and make friends. I am so sweaty, it's disgusting. But, so the master of that place, who has become a friend of mine, I've talked about him many times. You know, we're sitting there, and he says to me, I feel bad that I don't speak English. I wish, you know, so that I could tell you things more clearly. And I, of course, am like, oh man, you basically I'm thinking to myself, that is bullshit. Not because I don't appreciate the sentiment, but because the onus should not be on him to be able to communicate better, right? Like, I'm in Japan, so I should be able to communicate with him. And so I stressed this point, and he very sort of, in a very typically Japanese fashion, apologized and tried to take the blame onto himself. And I love this little street. You know, I love shots like this of the railway crossings. And I always try and get pictures for Instagram, but they never seem as interesting once you put them into picture form as they do looking at them. But anyway, and so, you know, we're talking about it, and it's pretty much going back and forth of my saying like, no, it's my fault, please don't worry about it, I need to try harder, which is true, I do need to try harder. And basically what it comes to is that, you know, he said, well, you know, anyway, there are just so many things I want to be able to tell you and talk to you about, but you just won't understand, right? And then of course our other friend who's there with us absolutely agrees. It's like, yeah, there's so many things we want to be able to say to you and hear about your life, and we can't. And so it's this level of regret. And the thing is, like, I get it, you know, and I've talked about so many times about what has kept me motivated to study Japanese. And for the most part, it's been embarrassment. Like, there's just been times I've been so embarrassed that I can't say something, or I say it in a really stupid, ignorant sounding way, or whatever, and that keeps me going. But I don't know, the reason why I woke up this morning like just raring to go, like raring to study is now there's like this tangible, it's tangible, right? Like I can feel the limits that I'm effectively putting on myself by not doing everything I can to be able to speak to these people and other friends that I might have, right? It's just, I feel terrible, like, and it's, of course it's, and I of course feel the same way. Like, there are things I want to be able to say, and feelings I want to be able to express in the proper way, but I just can't yet. I just can't, you know? And I hate it. I really hate it. What the hell was that noise? Did you hear that? So yeah, it's become like this real thing where I if there's anything that will keep you from true friendship and being able to make really strong bonds with people here, particularly when you're living in the countryside. Wow, do you see how sweaty I am? This is disgusting. We need to go home and change. Am I going where I want to go here? No, I'm not. Okay. What am I saying? Yeah, it's just, so anyway, long story short, it just feels like a much more powerful motivator than guilt or shame ever could be. So I'm gonna keep giving it a try. It's just, I feel like I'm at this point too with Japanese. It's just like, I don't know what I should be studying. Like, well, yes, I do. The thing is, right, it's really easy to get into a pattern where you only want to, where you only want to, how should I say, right? Like, it's so important for you when you study, for you to put as much focus on production of language as you do on sort of shoving it into your brain, right? This is something I'm going to talk about because I'm going to make a video about tips for self-study, but it really is like the greatest pitfall I think many of us fall into is oh, look at this beautiful old house. It's just sprawling. It's like a complex. Oh, little girl. Where's the little girl? Right. I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? Yeah. So right? That it's really easy for you to sit down and practice reading kanji and writing kanji and reading manga or listening to music or however the ways you're practicing listening, reading, and writing. But it seems like for the most part, the thing that happens is we end up just doing the reading and the listening, right? These sort of, how should I say? I'm at a loss, but basically like the intake skills, where it's fine if you can understand things, but it's a lot harder and a lot more time consuming but also most important for you to also focus equally on, sorry about the wind here, the reading and the writing parts of the equation, or not the reading and the writing, but the speaking and the writing, because yeah, I mean, how else are you going to be able to communicate with people if you can't do those things, right? And so that's my fault. That's my fault, and I've known for a long time I need to focus more on writing, which is originally why I started a Japanese Tumblr account. Because if you can write, you know, because if you can write, and particularly if you can sort of talk out loud as you write or talk out loud as you read or whatever, I mean, it's speaking practice to some extent, right? You'll at least get the muscles and you'll start to make those connections in your head, and that'll go a long way when you're actually trying to talk to people. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at. That's my big problem at the moment, is that I've just sort of reached this crossroads where, like, I've made friends with people, and I'm at home enough here now that people care about me, right? Like, really care about me. Like, we have relationships, but it's just like, how much farther can they go if I don't do what I need to do? So, but I feel like I have no sense of balance is the thing, right? Like, I get really into studying Japanese for 2 weeks, right? Like 4 or 5 hours a day. And when that happens, I ignore making videos. And then I get really into making videos, and I ignore Japanese. It's just like a personality flaw I have. I can only focus like really hard on one thing at a time, I guess. But I'm trying to be better by scheduling it, but like scheduling when I should do things. But honestly, if you guys have some tips for what I can do to sort of seek out and find some more balance, so that I can do everything I need to do, right? Like so that I can work on my writing, take care of this YouTube channel and the burrow and everything else. Is just, but I mean, I think I'm also asking like a $1 million question, because I think this is something that everybody struggles with, right? Oh Christ, construction never fails. Thanks, Obama. Yeah. So, something to think about. I am really excited because this weekend my friend is coming from the UK, and we're going to be doing that week-long hike. And it's always, last year it was just so good. It was so good for my Japanese studying, because even though I was with Travis, who speaks English, and when we were together, of course, it's not like I'm gonna speak Japanese to the guy. Like, that would be weird, eh? Damn you, wind! This is called Kurozugawa. It's not really a river, it's a man-made irrigation channel, but get some really interesting birds. It's always fun to watch birds like kill snakes. Well, it's not fun, that makes me sound like a creep, but I mean, it's really interesting. It's like watching a live like wildlife show, watching the heron just swoop down and pull a snake out of the water or something, or fish or what have you. But yeah, last summer when we went on that hike, like, there were so many times when I had to speak to whomever, right? Like, to get directions, to find out if people had a vacant place so we could stay the night in not a tiny hot tent. Not together, mind you, but we both had like, that would have been terrible if we had to share a tent just because of the heat and the size of our tents. It would be impossible. We'd be like, have to sleep on top of each other. This wind, I really hope it's not too bad on the video. That really pissed me off. But yeah, it'd just be really good practice, is what I'm trying to say. So on that note, as we walk back to my, ouch, that hurt my insides, my lovely, dinky little Leo Palace apartment here. That'll be the end of our cuppa. It was fun to do one of these again, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said before, One Cuppa is not going to be coming back as like a weekly thing, but it would be fun to do them monthly, particularly when I have people visiting. So yeah, let me know what you think about studying Japanese, any tips you have for studying Japanese better, friendship, life abroad, all that jazz. Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks always for watching, and I'll see you all very soon indeed. Cheers. I walked through a garden of some interesting sculptures, but somewhere between the chode garden and the rusty fence, I thought not for the first time that maybe I just don't get art. I went into a museum, looked at some pots, stared for a long while at a verdant garden and quiet pond, got way into this door leading into a tea house, and then, most excited of all, bought some jelly in a can. Jelly in a can.